Hey, happy Thursday, friends. It's time for our Thursday bell ringer. I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed yesterday's assembly, so let me know how you felt about it. And let me know what kind of music you dig, because, it was cool. Anyway, only thing cooler than that performance yesterday is probably going to be today's science class. You're right. All right, let's do the bell ringer. Da 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 do 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 do. Da 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 do do. All right. Da 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 do do do. Hey now. Da 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 do do. Mr. Kovacs class. It's Mr. Kovacs class. You might learn a ton. It's Mr. Kovacs class.
He's interesting too.
It's Mr. Kovacs class.
And he's super cool.
It's Mr. Kovacs class. All right, today we're going to look at a word that's got a lot of gray area, and the word is species. Hopefully when you think species, you think a kind of thing. And there are different species or different kinds of things, right? Some species are very similar to each other, like a lion and a tiger are different species. They're different kinds of things, but they're both cats, right? A lion and a coyote are also very different from each other. They're different species, right? But they're also different kinds of things in another way. We're just going to talk about species. What makes a species, right? It's a simple old definition, but there's a lot of gray area, and that's what we're going to talk about. Domestic dogs are all the same species. These are all different breeds of dogs, right? With mixed breeds like mutts, and then you have your purebreds too. Like here's your golden retrievers, and your, what else you got? Poodles and labradoodles and all those things, right? What makes them the same species is if you got male and females together, they could have puppies, right? The ability to reproduce is an important part of species. So they're the same kind of thing because they can reproduce, but there's an extra step. Their puppies have to be able to then also have puppies of their own. These guys are all the same species. They're all the same breed too, but they're really the same species, right? If they interbreed, they can have puppies, and their puppies can have puppies of their own. Same species, right? Same kind of thing, right? These folks can all interbreed with each other and have puppies. No, we don't call them puppies, babies. And then those babies can have babies of their own once they grow up to be old enough to have babies, right? Like it doesn't happen right away. I mean, that's crazy, right? But same species. So that definition of species is the ability to reproduce and have fertile offspring. That is, reproduce and have your offspring also be able to reproduce. I'll give you an example of not a species. Mules, right? To make a mule, you have to breed a horse and a donkey. The offspring is called a mule. But mules themselves are sterile. They can't breed on their own. So the only way to make a mule is to breed two different species. Horses and donkeys are considered different species because their offspring, although it survives, is not fertile, the mule. So here's an example they do look alike, right? But they are different species because they are reproductively isolated. They can't interbreed and have their offspring also breed. Just a little side note, when you breed two different species together and they can have offspring, their offspring is called a hybrid. Here's where it gets weird. You can't always tell species by the way they look, right? Because these two birds, the western and eastern meadowlarks, are the different species, although they look almost exactly alike. They're different because they're reproductively isolated. You might even find them in the same habitat, living together, but they cannot reproduce with each other to make viable offspring. Whereas these Commodore butterflies, they are the same species, even though they look very different. Right? These two can get together and have caterpillars of their own. The caterpillars can grow up and become butterflies, and then also have caterpillars of their own. Right? So the same species, different species. It's not always so easy just to tell by looking at it. You get right down to it, the difference in reproductive isolation has to do with compatibility of genes. If your genes aren't compatible with your partner's, you're never going to create an offspring. right? Obviously, like a horse and a donkey, their genes are compatible with each other, but they combine in such a way that the mule can't have offspring, right? So it's ultimately genetic, and as mutations happen, mutations are kind of like the fuel of making new species. Mutations are like the first step into making changes in offspring. Now, just because you have a mutation doesn't make you a new species, but as we'll see, mutations are really important for the developing of new kinds of things on planet Earth. All right, so we're going to talk more about species.